Coming up on today's show, there are some rumors circulating that Justin Jefferson could be traded this offseason. And so we'll talk about whether or not Denver would be a logical destination for Jefferson. And then we'll discuss whether or not Russell Wilson going to the Vikings has any truth to it, as ESPN identified Minnesota as a destination for Russ. But quick plug here, we're at 20,000 subscribers, 101. Help us reach 21,000. 99 to go. Chipping away, baby. Now, first up on the show, let's talk about Jefferson, because a Minnesota Vikings beat reporter said that there is a greater than 0% chance that Justin Jefferson could get traded. So naturally, I started thinking, would the Broncos make sense as a trade destination for Jefferson if it ever came to that? Now, here's what Charlie Walter from the Pioneer Press had to say. There could be a better chance of Jefferson getting traded than anybody's saying. That's because it doesn't make sense to pay the NFL's best receiver the money he wants, expected to be at least $150 million over 5 years, on a team that's not expected to be seriously competitive for several more years. My initial reaction was, I know a team willing to spend $150 million. It's the Denver Broncos, with the richest owners in the NFL by a wide margin. Don't you think the Broncos, who just bought the team and just spend money like it's nothing, I'm talking $400,000 on a brand new field that's only going to be played on once type of FU money, don't you think they might go to Sean Payton's office and go, so we heard there's a superstar player on the market because the Vikings are a bunch of broke bitches and they don't want to pay him $150? Well, we'll write a blank check right now. I think there could be some truth to the Broncos being a team willing to pony up and pay that type of money. I know every fan base wants to believe their ownership would do it, but the reality is they wouldn't. There are a lot of poor owners out there that would, and I say poor, and it's funny because they're all billionaires, but they are poor in terms of how much they're willing to spend on their team. And there are a lot of owners out there that simply would go, we can find very similar production for a lot cheaper out of the NFL draft. But the Broncos might go, hey, you need Justin Jefferson to be successful, and the only hurdle is $150 million? You have our blessing. Go get him. Now, I don't have to stand here and defend Justin Jefferson as one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, right? 4 years in the league, 4,000-plus yard seasons. He's only gone below 7 touchdowns once in his career this past season, and that's because he missed about a third of the year with a hamstring injury. And despite only playing 10 games, he still put up numbers not even close to Jerry Jeudy. And I'm not trying to dig at Jeudy, but I bring up Jeudy because the big hurdle the Broncos would have to get past in order to land Justin Jefferson would be, do they have enough assets to trade for Jefferson? So this is my best swing at a reasonable, maybe not even that all reasonable, trade idea to get Jefferson. The Broncos send their first-round pick this year, number 12 overall, so a pretty valuable first-round pick, right? Number 12 is a lot more valuable than number 24 overall. A 2025 second-rounder because they don't have a second-round pick this year, and Jerry Jeudy, who has his fifth-year option picked up, so the Vikings have some time to figure out whether or not he is a long-term piece for them. And if so, he definitely wouldn't cost anywhere near $150 million. Honestly, I'm not really confident that a first, a second, and Jeudy would get enough to result in Justin Jefferson going the other way. But what if the other suitors don't want to, what if the other teams don't want to pay him $150 million? So all of a sudden the pool for teams interested in Justin Jefferson dramatically shrinks. Maybe a first, a second, and Jerry Jeudy would be the best offer the Vikings could get. Probably not, but you never know. So let me know, would you do this trade? Yes or no? Denver gets Justin Jefferson. Of course, they would have to give him the biggest contract in wide receiver history across the NFL. But in exchange, the Vikings get a top 12 pick this year, a second-round pick next year, and Jerry Jeudy. I mean, they're not coming away with a king's ransom, but they're not coming away with absolutely nothing. If Justin Jefferson is truly available and the Vikings GM, Kwesi Dofamensa, is actually listening to offers for him, all 31 other teams should be calling the Vikings. Now, not all 31 teams, like I said earlier, will be interested in giving him a $150 million contract. I mean, that's the kind of contract that your GM has to run by your ownership. That's not signing a cheap free agent wide receiver. And a lot of owners would say, we're not paying that type of money. Go find another wide receiver. But the Broncos ownership would say they're okay with that. And so if Denver becomes one of the few teams interested in paying Jefferson, maybe the Broncos could make a big offer and land one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. I'm not going to go too deep on this because it's still really early on in terms of the life cycle of this rumor, but it's something to keep an eye on as the offseason progresses. Next up on the show, we're going to talk about whether or not Russell Wilson could end up in Minnesota in 2024 playing for the Vikings. ESPN thinks that's a real possibility, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. But first, I want to highlight our sponsor today, which is GameTime. You should not have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. GameTime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. If you want to go see, I would say a Broncos game, but unfortunately, that's not possible. But what about a Nuggets game? What about an Avs game? Or if you just want to go see an NFL playoff game? With GameTime, you can do that without breaking the bank. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. GameTime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code BroncosChat for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem that code BroncosChat for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So let's talk about Russell Wilson because it feels like it's a done deal that he is done in Denver. And ESPN's Jeremy Fowler put out a really insightful article talking about what's next for Russell Wilson and the Broncos, and he listed the Vikings and the Buccaneers as destinations. Now, after Tampa Bay just won a playoff game, I am inclined to believe the Bucs are going to bring back Baker Mayfield. But if the Minnesota Vikings, for whatever reason, don't bring back Kirk Cousins, he is coming off a torn Achilles, he is a little bit later in his career, and he could be looking for a huge payday, and maybe the Vikings are a little bit queasy about giving him all that money after tearing an Achilles at his age, and they look down the street, and there's Russell Wilson, who costs 1/40th of what Kirk Cousins might cost. Now, I'm still never going to get over the fact that Denver is going to incur an $85 million dead cap hit. That's never going to sit well with me, but the reality is he ain't coming back. Now, here's what Jeremy Fowler had to say on this. Don't be surprised if Wilson, should he become a free agent, is intrigued by Minnesota, assuming Kirk Cousins doesn't re-sign with the Vikings. A big question. Personally, I think Kirk Cousins is returning to Minnesota. There have been a lot of Vikings fans that had debated whether or not Kirk is a good quarterback for them. And after he went down a third of the way into the season, it became very clear how badly the Vikings need Kirk Cousins compared to how badly Kirk Cousins needs the Vikings. So I think the Vikings are going to find a way to bring Kirk back. But there is something too. It's kind of like college football head coaches. When they get fired and they have that huge buyout, but if they go take a job elsewhere, their new salary is subtracted from what the team owes them. If Russell Wilson were to go sign with another team, whatever they pay him, well, that is deducted from what the Broncos owe him in 2024. So if I'm Russell Wilson, I'm sticking it to the Broncos after they cut me, and I'm signing a vet minimum deal. And that might make Russell Wilson, despite looking very shaky the last 2 years, a very attractive quarterback because let's be honest, there was some bad quarterback play this year. Like we had Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke and Josh Dobbs, like Jeff Driscoll. Some of these guys starting are nowhere near Russell Wilson. Like Russell Wilson, he is a punching bag of jokes. He is often ripped on, and I'm guilty of it sometimes, let's be honest. But he's not a bottom 5 quarterback in the league. And GMs know that. GMs are not going to run their team based on what Twitter says. So a GM out there might go, man, Russell Wilson, sign him for $1 million? I can get some pretty good play out of him for $1 million, and I can spend a lot of that other money on other pieces in free agency. Now, more on this from Fowler. One veteran NFL agent floated this idea. The Broncos could offer a trade to prospective teams on a sliding scale of draft compensation. For example, if Team X agrees to pay $25 million of the $39 million, the Broncos would perhaps throw in multiple mid-round picks. It's like a larger scale Brock Osweiler trade. Now, let's go back in time for a moment. After big you-know-what, Brock got signed by the Texans, and that was a disastrous deal by Houston. He was eventually traded to the Browns, not for the Browns' benefit, but so that the Texans could unload his contract. In fact, Houston got $10 million in cap space relief, $16 million in cash relief, and a fourth-round pick in exchange for the Browns receiving a second. So Cleveland did pick up a pretty good day 2 pick in exchange for eating all that contract money from the Houston Texans, and then they eventually moved on from Brock Osweiler. Now, could the Broncos swing a trade similar to that? They don't have a second-round pick to give up. And I don't know what team's going to want to eat, say, $25 million. All right, take $25 million of their budget out for a third-round pick. You might have a tough time finding a team to agree to that. Maybe if there was a team like the Panthers, I suppose, that's full on, let's rebuild and let's get some draft picks to build around Bryce Young, that could be a possibility, but I think this is a major long shot. Also, a lot of Russell Wilson's contract is already paid out, right? He's already got the money. So you're going to reimburse Denver? You're going to Venmo the money back? That's just not going to happen. So this one seems like a 1 in 100 chance. Now, let me know, where do you guys think Russell Wilson will play in 2024? Do you think it's going to be the Broncos? I just don't see a way you can bring him back to that locker room. Like, that just seems like a major elephant in the room. So I'm thinking if the Falcons don't get Justin Fields, and let's say they hire Bill Belichick and he doesn't want to draft a rookie QB, could he go for Russell Wilson? Maybe. The Las Vegas Raiders could be an interesting name to keep an eye on, right? They don't have a top 10 pick. They are not really in love with Aiden O'Connell, and they're definitely not running it back with Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe Russ in the division as a possibility? I don't know. Let me know what you think down below. That will do it for us on today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed our coverage, consider subscribing to the channel. It is completely free, and we give you daily Broncos content.